If you've had one of those homeschool days that feels like it went off the rails and you feel guilty, well, this is for you. If we haven't met, I'm Teresa Wiedrich, the certified life coach and graduated homeschool mom of 4 kids, and I'm here to support you to shed what's not working so you can show up in your homeschool and your mom life purposefully. It's lovely to meet you. So I had this moment with probably one of my kids. I probably could explain this story in 5 different ways based on the child that was with me. I had a story where I told my friend about a moment that didn't feel good. I knew that I showed up as a mom in a way that I wouldn't want anyone to engage, and that I felt bad about it for a reason. And it was a vulnerable moment. I really shared something that I didn't know how she would respond when I shared it with her, and I felt bad. I knew that I don't want to show up in that way, and yet I did. And so when I shared it with her, she surprised me because she laughed. I was like, wait, what? I wasn't expecting that response. But she giggled because she had a hard time believing that that is how I would show up. She also encouraged me and said, listen, we've all been there. We've all had those moments, and you're not unique in this. We all have these moments where we feel bad about how we show up, and she laughed. So I want to help you laugh off your homeschool mama guilt too. Not to not take responsibility, but also, more importantly, to take responsibility in a growth-oriented way and to compartmentalize that story and move on in your personal growth journey. So maybe you've lost your patience with the kids, or you've snapped at the kids unfairly, or you've made a decision you regretted really quickly, or maybe you regretted it later. You felt guilty hours after, minutes after they went to bed and everybody snugly cuddled into their beds and they look so perfect, and you wonder, how even did I make that choice? Well, I want you to know, first of all, you're not alone. This is a common refrain. I'm privileged now to hear the stories that other homeschool moms are sharing with me about their experiences. Sometimes I'm even with them when they're having a moment with their kids. And okay, let's unpack this. First of all, I think guilt is normal. Guilt is normal because just like pain is normal, if you put your hand on a hot oven or a stove, you're probably going to feel pain. And when you engage in a way that you know this isn't your ideal self showing up here, you aren't showing up in the way you want. You wouldn't, in a calm, cool moment, choose this way of approaching your kids. Then I think that guilt is also useful because it actually triggers you to go, what is the next right step? What is the right way, the way that I want to show up in this scenario? Guilt is normal. Guilt is useful. It's just part of the human experience. But especially as us homeschool moms, we have a lot of opportunities with our kids. We have a lot going on. We want to do everything right. We definitely don't want to do anything wrong. And so our goal is to do things perfectly, and that's not happening. But even if we weren't aspiring to be perfect mothers, we still are going to make mistakes. But I think there is a way for us to harness our guilt, maybe even laugh it off. So here's a few steps to address your guilt. Step 1 is to actually identify what's going on. So get clear on where it's coming from. Is it true guilt or is it false guilt? So true guilt is that you know you made a mistake and maybe you overreacted in a situation, or you showed up in a way that you're like, that's not how I ideally want to show up here. False guilt is that nagging sense of never being enough, having unrealistic expectations kind of like bang you on the head and say, you're never going to do this well enough. Or maybe you're being influenced by social media or somebody else's opinions on what a really great homeschool mom is like. Maybe you have an inner critic that just naturally shames you. I know that there's this one storyline that I hear sometimes from various people where they feel guilty as they walk into a store because they anticipate that someone thinks that they might shoplift or take something. And yet they've never shoplifted, they've never taken anything. And where that came from probably is sourced in a deep sense of shame. But that is false guilt. That is similar to false guilt. And there's many ways that we can feel false guilt as moms, usually based in our unrealistic expectations. So ask yourself, what is the source of this guilt? And what's your next step? If it's false guilt, well, we need to shift mindsets and get clear on what's really going on under there to understand why we're triggered in that moment to feel shame about something that we didn't do. So step 2 is to practice self-compassion. I have a podcast episode and a variety of blog posts. I've got a coaching course on self-compassion for homeschool moms because I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to turn inward toward our emotions and be kind to ourselves. And oftentimes I'll share with moms when they are talking about something that has made them feel bad, that they knew that they shouldn't have done, or they shouldn't have engaged in a certain way or spoken in a certain way, then I would ask them, what would you say to your friend if she were in that same scenario? Or if I was telling you this story, what would you say to me? Because I know what you wouldn't say. You wouldn't say, oh, you're a horrible mother. You should return the kids back to where they came from, which definitely not. That would be just really uncomfortable for some of us. But you would be kind. You would choose a way to be gentle. You likely wouldn't say, you know what, that's totally cool. What you did is amazing. I'm so glad you did it. No, you would say, okay, let's talk about how I can encourage you or support you, or what can I say to help you feel like it's okay. I've been there. You're probably going to say, I'm sorry. I've been there. In fact, I might have been there yesterday. I'm sorry. You're there. What can I do to help you get through this? Or what do you think is the next right choice in this thing? You would show kindness to that friend. Maybe there's other words you would use to help them feel comfortable, or you would encourage them towards self-forgiveness, or you would remind them that actually they're showing up in so many amazing ways with their kids. You would be kind to them. Knowing that none of us is perfect, knowing that we would speak kindly to our friends means that we need to be okay being kind to ourselves as well. So step 3 is to challenge your thoughts. When guilt creeps in, you want to ask yourself these questions. These questions originally come from Byron Katie, but I first listened to them in a live workshop with Dr. Daniel Amen, the author of Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. So he has shared these questions. When you're feeling a deep feeling, you ask yourself, is this true? You ask yourself, am I 100% sure that it's true? This feeling, is it accurate? Is it telling me the truth? What are some other perspectives in this situation? There are always alternate perspectives. We just don't always spend time considering them. Sometimes when we have an honest friend or a compassionate partner who says, you know what, I appreciate that you're having a hard time, but can I tell you another way of thinking about this? If you have a friend or a partner who helps you to see your perspective beyond whatever challenging perspective you have, then you will know that there is always another perspective. So the thing is that our perspective influences how we show up. Our perspective influences how we decide to engage a particular scenario. So shifting our perspective can have a big shift in how we show up. You can also ask yourself, what might happen if I shifted my thinking into an alternate perspective? What might happen as a result of how I shifted my experience? Guilt can cloud our judgment. Sometimes we don't want to take responsibility for our guilt. We want to blame. We want to shift blame and say, well, if they didn't do this, then I wouldn't have done this. And I just want to say that I think that compelling to blame often sources from a deep sense of shame and a deep sense of having been mistreated around various things. And yet we're responsible. We're responsible to take responsibility to do the thing that we know we need to do toward our kids. We need to show up intentionally. We need to acknowledge when we've done something we shouldn't have done and take responsibility for it or make amends for it. And that's actually step 4. Step 4 is, if the guilt is based on something you truly could have handled better, then own it. It won't make it better if you try to tell yourself, just go underground. No big deal. No, actually, it is a big deal. It's not just for the other person and the relationship you have, but it's also for yourself, because that is like little poison inside of you when you don't want to acknowledge when you know you've done something or engaged in a way that's not helpful, that's not healthy. So own it, take responsibility, directly apologize for it, but don't stay stuck there. Create a next step plan. What would be your next step? What could you do? What could you do to prevent the situation from happening next time? All this week, I'll be talking about how homeschool moms can address their big emotions in their homeschool. I've already chatted on the podcast, Homeschool Mama Self-Care Podcast, about I think it's 18 strategies to address, that fed up feeling if you're fed up with homeschooling. And we go into a deep dive on how to address your big emotions. Also, I just uploaded to YouTube a video that is designed for homeschool moms to, really check their thoughts. I go into a deeper dive on this concept of thought self-care. It's my version of self-care for your mind, and what you can do to address your unhealthy thoughts. So you might want to check those both out. All of these discussions on big emotions are one of the elements of my upcoming Reimagine group coaching program. So if we want to reimagine our homeschools, this is one element that we want to address, and it is our big emotions. How we feel about things, how we think about things, how we engage the people in our world and ourselves. These are really important. And really, it's a personal growth journey that we take on forever. This is not one and done. This, even though the group coaching program happens over the course of 8 weeks, from my own personal experience, I did intentionally begin this work in about 20 years ago. Actually, it was exactly 20 years ago, minus a couple months. So I started 20 years ago. I'm going to continue, and it is a continual journey. And I know that you and everyone else that is doing this work will continue to do this as long as you're on this planet. But sometimes talking things out with a friend or a therapist or even a coach can help you find clarity on what you need to do next. Even me and everyone who is a coach or a therapist needs someone to be able to talk things through with. You don't have to do this all on your own. There have been people like me who have walked this walk and are deeply aware of the dynamics of a homeschool family home. So step 5 is to learn from your mistakes. Seems obvious, but sometimes, especially if we're avoiding engaging the thing that makes us feel guilty and we're trying to shift that guilt to blaming someone else, we aren't learning from our mistakes. We are telling ourselves we can just pretend and ignore it. But we want to learn from our mistakes. We're all on a personal growth journey, every single one of us on this planet. And mistakes, they might make us feel a sense of regret and guilt, and that would be normal, but they are an impetus also for us to make the next step in our growth journey, to actually figure out what is the next best thing for me to learn. What will I learn from this scenario? It just gets you a lot better in knowing how to deal with your big emotions, and also what matters to the other people, and how you can be kind and honoring of other people even after you've showed up in a way you didn't want to. What I know for sure is that these mistakes, though sometimes they feel really significant, they don't define you. They don't define you. They're not you. When you mess up, your goal is to learn from it, use it as an opportunity for growth, assume you're on a personal growth journey and that's a permanent life experience, don't let guilt turn into self-condemnation. When you do, you're more likely to focus on the things that you do wrong, and also you're more likely to focus on when somebody else is doing something wrong. You focus more heavily on when they're doing something wrong. So remind yourself that you're human, you're learning, you're doing your best, you're doing the best you can do in this moment. Maybe you need to learn some other strategy or next step or pursue a discussion with someone, but it doesn't define you. So yes, that brings me to step 6, and that is to seek support. Certainly one of the most damaging things that guilt can do is to make you feel isolated and make you feel like you're the only one experiencing this, and you're not. Like, name the thing. You're not the only one. You're not. It's okay to lean on others, whether it's a friend or someone in your homeschool co-op or a group, or maybe a coach, me. Taking things or talking things through can really help you get perspective, feel differently about what's going on in your world, and really feel like you have fresh eyes into the scenario or on your family. Step 7 is to practice mindfulness, which is something that even this morning I made sure to do. I put my hand on my heart and I took a deep, slow breath, held it for about 4 beats, and then exhaled slowly through my mouth like a straw for 8 beats. And I did that 3 times. I typically do that once a day just to check in with myself. How am I feeling? It helps you to get clear on what you're feeling, what's really going on up there. And it helps you to be more present too, which is really useful in this homeschool mom life for other reasons. But guilt often pulls us out of the now and either helps keep us focused on the past, things we can't change, or shifts us toward the future where we fuss and worry and get anxious, instead of shifting to the present and asking ourselves, what's the next right step right now? So take a deep breath, focus on this moment, and let go of your guilt. Step 8 is to take care of you. Sometimes guilt makes us feel like we have to be perfect all the time, that we can't miss a beat, that we can't make a mistake, that we have to be these homeschool moms. And various people have different experiences of what homeschool mom means, but certainly in the community, we tend to elevate that experience or that role in our lives. And because we intend so many good things toward our kids, it almost feels like superhero energy, but we know it's not possible. We know it's not possible, but we also kind of hope we can do all the things, right? Can I hear an amen? But we can't without taking care of ourselves, because we are humans and all humans have needs, including homeschool moms. So make sure you're doing things for you that really do replenish you, that help build in a sense of resilience. Step 9 is to practice self-forgiveness. There is a quote by Maya Angelou, which you probably have heard. I'm going to remind you. I love this quote. If there's anybody I could have coffee with, she would be the one. She shared, "Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, right, do better." I knew you knew that one. So forgive yourself for what you didn't know before you learned it, and then do better. So lastly, this is the 10th step. It's grow from that guilt. Remember that guilt is a feeling that is really an opportunity for growth. So you don't have to stay stuck there. You can, if you pretend it doesn't exist. You will stay stuck there if you don't acknowledge when you have done something you shouldn't have done. But our goal is to keep growing, use those guilt moments as just the next step in our growth journey, and become who we were meant to be, and show up in our kids' lives in a way that we want to show up. So mistakes don't define you. Explore this guilt experience. Be real with yourself. Practice self-forgiveness. Ask for forgiveness, make amends, and create a plan to address whatever that thing is that you had a reason to feel guilt. And maybe even you can learn to laugh off your homeschool mama guilt. If you have not yet signed up for the Reimagine Your Homeschool mini course, just ask me for the link. I've been recreating it and cleaning it up and trying to make it really actionable for you, because I see that there are certain areas that are consistently challenges for homeschool moms. And in the upcoming group coaching program, 8-week group coaching program, we're going to address these exact things, big emotions like guilt. So you don't want to miss it. I hope you have a beautiful week.